It's 4:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. A few statements before we get started. Commissioner Jason Ness will be participating in this meeting via interactive technology from the address of 3957 Village Lane South, Fargo, North Dakota 58104, which location is open and accessible to the public during the meeting. Reminder to commissioners attending via interactive technology, please make sure that your camera and microphone are turned on so we can see and hear you during the meeting. Moorhead Public Service Commission welcomes and encourages customer input on issues listed on the agenda or of general water electric utility interest, time and commission permitting. Speakers are limited to 3-minute presentations. Customers wishing to address the Commission regarding a specific agenda item will be afforded an opportunity during the discussion of that item. Customers wishing to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be given the opportunity to do so under the heading Customers to be Heard/Recognitions. Each person requesting the opportunity to speak is asked to fill out a request to speak form located on the table in the back of the room and present it to the administrative assistant in attendance at the meeting. Any follow-up or feedback will be done by email on anything that cannot be resolved this evening. With that, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Joe, can I just do a microphone test? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Jason, yes. Can you hear us?
I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear us now, Jason?
Yep, there we go. Very good. Thank you.
All right, excellent. So I have a motion from Borgen, second by Lyseth. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Lyseth? Ness?
Aye.
And Paulson? Aye. Look for a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Lyseth, second by Baker. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker? Lyseth?
Aye.
Ness?
Aye.
And Paulson? Aye. All right, we got customers to be heard, recognitions. I don't know if we have anyone.
No customers tonight in the audience that I'm aware of. We do have one recognition, though.
Okay.
Scott Zajac, he's one of our locators. He just had his 10-year anniversary on the 1st of June. So,
Excellent. Congratulations to Scott. All right, we'll move on to old business. Anybody have any old business? All right.
I do have something, Joel, here.
Yeah,
real
go
quick
ahead,
on your old
Commissioner.
business.
Yes. Yep.
I did receive a phone call today from Moorhead City Councilwoman Matson, and she was requesting some information in regards to an update on some of the installation issues that our people were having with the new water meters. A few of those individuals are in the ward that I represent, and she asked that I follow up with the commission and just see where we were at as far as an update on that goes. I know that we were going to look into some of that with the contractor, and I was just trying to see if I could get an update so I can give her an update.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. We, as far as I know, we have not been able to have a meeting with the budget subcommittee yet, but maybe General Manager Schmidt has any other kind of update administratively.
yes. So Jake and I have been working through some of the details since the last meeting. I know we did reach out to the contractor to get insurance to reevaluate that. They did provide a letter back to Ms. Hanson. I got a message from her today on that, and it was a denial letter, but we're not sure if it's actually was reevaluated. So we're going to continue to talk with them a little bit on that to try to see if we can get some resolution to that part of it. We were hoping to have that before we met with you guys. So kind of with the next schedule for the next week or so, we might have to schedule an meeting sometime after or around the next meeting.
Yeah, that sounds good. If we could try to get that done prior to the next meeting, I think that'd be great, just to kind of expedite this issue.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you for that update.
All right, any other old business? Okay, we'll move to item number 8A, City Council report.
You know, I think maybe, Jason, are you muted? Thank you.
I don't show that I'm muted. Do you hear me?
I can, but when you're not muted, we are getting a lot of feedback over here, so I thought maybe it would help unless you're talking to maybe mute. Okay. As far as city council reports, I don't have a lot to report except about the discussion of the city hall renovation project, which we're going to see tonight. So that pretty much takes care of it.
All right, great. We'll move on to Public Service Commission. Anyone have anything to report? I'll just note there was no EDA meeting, so it was really orientation for new members. So that's all I had. And we'll move to 8C, General Manager's report.
Sure. Quick update there. There's the only update in there is the legislative update. Of course, everybody's aware that they'll be going into the special session when we don't know, so we'll wait and hear on that. Other than that, just an update from MRES is included in the packet as well. One thing to note, and I'm going to have Mark Pritchard come up to the podium here to speak about it. Mark and I did attend the Clay County Commission meeting today. They did go through their public hearing process for their development code, and I'll let Mark speak to that. It really was involved with the wellhead protection and the overlay districts that we've got on the Buffalo Aquifer. So Mark, I'll let you go ahead.
Thank you, Travis. Mark Pritchard, Water Plant Manager. So this morning, staff attended the Clay County Board of Commissioners public hearing for the updates to the development code. It's been a 2-year process that has included feedback from, I think they said, over 100 participants on the time frame that they've received comments on. We did have some discussions yesterday afternoon with the planning director, Mr. Matt Jacobson, and we did notice that upcoming till yesterday afternoon, they did not have a majority of our wellhead protection plan items in the wellhead protection overlay district section. So we had a brief but very productive conversation, and we attended the meeting this morning, and they did take all of our recommendations with a few minor tweaks here or there, but the linchpin that keeps our wellhead protection plan was continued on this morning at their acceptance of the draft as it sits now. So overall, really good meeting. Got everything that we needed, with a few different caveats that really need some definitions fleshed out a little bit more for their plan, but overall it was what we were looking for. So good meeting this morning.
And Mark, can you just clarify, that was just a discussion, so the actual plan has not been approved yet, is that correct? Or
Actually, this morning they did vote to approve with our comments incorporated.
Okay.
So they did move a little bit quicker than we were anticipating on that front, but we did submit recommendations based off of what the 2012 development code stated versus what the new draft had in it, and we had our justifications for why we thought certain provisions should be maintained from the old to the new development code, and all of those recommendations were accepted, and they had a couple tweaks that were minor, but it didn't materially change our comments, so that was very good to see.
excellent. Any additional questions for Mark? And I believe that's all, Travis. All right, I'll look for a motion to accept the general manager's report.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Borgen, second by Lyseth. Roll call vote. Borgen,
Yes.
Baker,
Aye.
Lyseth,
Aye.
Ness,
Hi.
and Paulson, yes. All right, we'll move on to item number 11, discussion of the Moorhead City Hall renovation project. And
Yeah, I'll start this off. We've got representatives from JLG Architects, who is the consultant for the city of Moorhead for the renovation project at the city hall. We've been about a year, maybe a little bit more than down this path of revitalizing what City Hall looks like, and at a point where want to bring the commission up to speed on where we're at, what it looks like for MPS. At the end of the day, it's a financial decision, and that lies on the commission as a whole. So wanted to bring you guys up to speed. So we'll have JLG. They've got a PowerPoint presentation to kind of show where it started and where we're at today. So it looks like Rob Remark is coming up to speak.
Perfect. And then are we able to start that PowerPoint?
I think they're working on it. Give it just a second.
Ooh, and then I got the clicker. Oh yeah, perfect. Okay. General Manager Schmidt and Commission, thank you very much for having us here today. My name is Rob Remark. As mentioned, with JLG Architects, also resident in Moorhead, so this is a pretty fun opportunity to be able to come and share a little bit about the vision for downtown Moorhead, kind of where the project had come from and where it's been going, as well as dig into specifically the City Hall project, which then I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Sean Seneschal as well to talk more specifically about. So I'm going to say a couple things. We're going to talk a little bit high level about some of like the bigger development, the bigger process, just to help give some context. And then we will get a little more specific into like even talking about the floor plans and some images to help support that conversation. Open to questions at any time. Would rather just be able to do our best to answer them, or if we need to follow up, we will. If we're going too slow and this isn't relevant and we're driving you nuts, if one of you starts doing this, we will speed up. So we want to make sure that we give you the information that you want to hear and understand, but at the same point, we're not trying to drive you nuts. So just let me know if at any point you're like, okay, keep going, we're game for that. So really quick kind of context snapshot. This is a graphic that has shown up a number of times in different city council workshops or public events. It sort of talks about the fact that all of this downtown development process has been rooted in a lot of different plans and studies and collaboration and partnership by a lot of different public, private entities collaborating and working together. The impetus of it is even something like Downtown Moorhead, Inc., where a bunch of both public and private leaders got together and said, we've got an opportunity here to do more and to do better for the community and to continue to be the community we want to be. And we know that that's going to take some energy in the downtown space. And so through great partnerships and leadership with Derek and a lot of other great leaders on that board, certain studies and plans started to take place in collaboration with the city and the public. That led to one of the first big studies being that downtown master plan, which then was a successful driver to help the city understand the trajectory that they wanted to continue to progress on, and led to things like the comprehensive plan saying, okay, so we've got some vision for the downtown. We've done some engagement with the community and understand what some of the roadblocks and hurdles are. We've done tons of different engagement with different leaders in the community and the universities and the school systems and some of the bigger corporations. And we've identified some challenges and hurdles. And at that time, as many of you all in your role know, there's a lot of big infrastructure projects that were happening to kind of pave the way to these more vertical projects, like the architectural things that we're kind of talking about. But some big things needed to happen. Funding of a couple different underpasses, the construction and the completion of some of those, things that were happening with other municipal organizations that were, hey, taking priority to be able to make these other projects make sense. So these are all kind of foundational to where we are today. Eventually, in that 2020 sort of time frame, there started to be some other partnerships talked about the mall specifically and the Center Mall site and different strategies around, okay, we understand that this has been identified as an area of opportunity, but there's some certain challenges and hurdles that need to be overcome due to just like the contractual relationship of that space and that land. And so that's when that work really started to happen as far as coming up with what could this look like? What could that strategy be? And how would we even communicate about that? That's when JLG started working on the project with Stantec, and that was actually in collaboration with Roar's Development and a pre-development process to help look at what that vision could be and the why behind it and create some structure to it. So you kind of see that in the middle. All of that being said was, kind of the impetus to why we're here today. And one of the things that was always talked about along the way was how important some of the different, organizations and municipal organizations have been in the downtown and supporting the community at large. And something that was always talked about is, you can imagine, like, hey, if the mall starts to come down around City Hall, the tower's going to be there and it's not going to have a base. Like, it's literally like the mall comes down around it and it's going to be open air. And we're going to have to figure out what the right strategy then at that time is to enclose that, and what those functions look like and how it continues to serve the public. So that's what some of that master planning has been, really around. For those of you that have been, kind of tracking the project for a long time, you've probably heard or seen projects or seen communication about urban renewal. And so you maybe have seen photographs like the one up here on the screen, of the old, kind of historic Center Avenue experience. And then you'll see the urban renewal solution of the mall. It was a different time. And then, in summary, I show this to say the move is kind of a little bit more back to the approachable street front. And so you think of some of the city projects that have happened that, again, kind of literally paved the way, like the Center Avenue project a few years ago, was strategic to be able to get back towards this master plan making sense and being able to get more people living and working and being able to revitalize some of this downtown area into the current atmosphere that will support that. So that's all just context to say that, here we're looking at a 2D aerial map of what kind of that downtown master plan vision has looked like. So again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking specifically about this, but it's about 17 acres of land. The idea of looking back at the original historic streets as far as like the grid of the city, how they could interact, possibly move throughout the site. And a lot of analysis was done at that time to look at viability of a downtown development. That led to being able to communicate, beyond a map of what that experience could potentially look like. And so that's where maybe this image, if you've seen it, started to come from. And this has developed and changed over time. But the really important thing to note here is that there's a number of projects that have really become real because of this process that started back in 2018 with some of those studies. So we're here in 2025, and the construction of the Moorhead Community Center and Public Library is very much underway in collaboration with MPS and all of the other parties. The street projects are very much underway and are a big part of your teams and staff's collaboration for years to make that happen, to literally put the infrastructure in and collaborate on what that infrastructure needed to look like to support a thriving downtown development. There's developer partners who are, actually building some of these projects that you're seeing as it sort of leaves the screen there, and those are becoming real projects, and a lot of other conversations related to other development opportunities. So really the point of this is to say that the City Hall has always been an integral part of the plan, and it's always been one of the spots that we've talked about kind of where the city was able to double down on its commitment and partnership for giving back, specifically to this development by helping support it and allow and pave the way for developers and other partners to come in and bring investment to the area. So throughout this process, it's been rooted in different studies through the private space on mixed-use development, parking, the right mixture of public and private offerings. And so just really quickly, what you're seeing on the map is the MCCPL, that's the Moorhead Community Center Public Library. So that's the location that's under construction. You're seeing 5th Street, continuing on. And you're seeing that intersection of City Hall and where it says B Avenue, that's Minnesota now, and A Avenue, Red River now. But you can see, like, even early on that there was always this talk of the importance of kind of the public realm at this space, and the City Hall was at the center of it. So it's been an exciting project, one that was always known would be worth and have its time of study, but there was a lot of work that needed to do before getting there. And so that's where we've been this last kind of year and a half, is with a really specific study of City Hall. So happy to answer any questions. This image is conceptual in nature and is actually probably a space that more study will kind of be moving into now. But it was talking about there's this opportunity for the relationship between the community center and public library as a civic amenity and public amenity, a spot for the community, as well as the City Hall for that infrastructure of all the services that happen at City Hall between city services and the MPS services, and then what that relationship was for a municipal plaza in that space, and then how, mixed-use development could kind of surround that. So this was just sort of a conceptual image to help support that. Really quickly, and I won't go through a lot of detail here, but it helps just to kind of, I think, track the timeline of kind of how this process has happened. We've had the privilege of working with MPS throughout this entire time, starting with the pre-design process. And what that looked like was the initial interviews of department leads. And so we've had the privilege of working with General Manager Schmidt and Mark and other team members to ask questions, to learn more. And Sean will talk a little bit more specifically about those findings. But we kind of take, the design process, as you guys are all quite familiar with through all of the things that MPS is always doing. But it's step by step. So started off with the pre-design. It starts off with getting the right team members involved in the process. It has gone through a lot of city council approval process. And then it's progressed into more of the design phases. So we had the pre-design where I said, we started to do those initial interviews of departments, understanding how big departments are, where departments might need to be located. One of the big things that was done throughout the pre-design phase was trying to answer the question of, is there enough space in City Hall for growth of the departments that are going to be hosted in City Hall? So we spent a lot of time interviewing and asking questions about current staff load, what happens when the city population continues to grow, what departments grow because of that, what departments don't grow because of that, and how do we build and plan that kind of growth in. So a lot of time was spent with the city council and with city leadership and with the MPS staff team talking about that to make sure that we could plan for the future, and I'll confidently say this is a smart decision to continue to move on. So that happened. Where we're at today is we're wrapping up the construction documents phase, which means we're putting, the technical drawings for bidding and construction together right now for the project. Like I said, I'll hand it off to Sean here. He'll share a little bit more specifically about that design solution. We have a couple images, and Sean, you can, maybe talk a little bit more about this, but what's always been, we've always been aware of, and you see it in that initial rendering, is that the City Hall as kind of that civic identifier at the center of the development has always been really key into the vision, and it was kind of key in its conception in '73, and it remains an opportunity to be really important civic monument for the city as we continue to think about City Hall into the future. So happy to answer questions. Sean, talk a little more specifically about the project.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you all for having me. Sean Senescal, also with JLG Architects. Move on to this image. We're going to continue to get further refined on the details, but before we do that, just wanted to show, this is a rendering from, call it the northwest corner. You can see just a clip of the Moorhead Public Library on the right-hand side, the plaza space in the middle that Rob had talked about as sort of the center of that public realm, and then you can obviously see the City Hall Tower. We'll talk more about what's happening at the base of the building, but you can see kind of a glass base that's happening. As Rob had mentioned, the project with mall demolition coming down has to get enclosed. And so we'll talk more about what that means. But really trying to cast a vision for what City Hall means to the public, to the citizens of Moorhead, and making it a building that everyone can be proud of. We think there's a lot of inherent value in the existing structure of City Hall, both literally structurally, but also from a design standpoint, and the amount of resources that are still there that we're able to retain. Before we continue to dial in and focus on more details, this is that overall development. Wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about parking. Parking's always a big topic. Parking for your staff, parking for customers. You could see City Hall in yellow. Adjacent to City Hall, to the north and to the east, you can see where we have 13 stalls, 9 stalls, and then even just a little bit further from there to the north, 11 stalls and 18 stalls. Those are all on-street parking opportunities for the entire development. What has been talked about initially is the idea of parking adjacent to City Hall. So the immediate, like, kind of 13 stalls and 9 stalls is having some dedicated 20-minute parking for City Hall, so that if someone's coming in to pay an MPS bill, they're not having to find a spot, down the street. It takes them a hard time to navigate where it's at. And so we'll continue to talk more about that. So there's this immediate availability of parking. Just to give some context, because it's kind of hard to look at this map and kind of picture what's there today. The 11 stalls that you see to the north, that's kind of where your customers are parking today, or not today, but when you were at City Hall. And so you can see just kind of the relationship of those 11 stalls to City Hall, and kind of try to formulate that in your head of where your staff or citizens and staff are parking currently. Then expanding from that, there is additional parking opportunities in the existing parking ramp all the way to the west that we have labeled as 300 stalls. There's the existing surface parking to the north that has about approximately 100 stalls. And then as a part of the development, there is a mixed use project envisioned to happen to the west that is initially planned for 400 stalls. We don't think that your customers are parking in those locations, again, from accessibility, but those are probably locations for staff for City Hall. You'll note we're kind of indicating on blue there the distances from those locations. And again, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around, like, what's 500 feet, 550 feet mean? So this is an example of, like, at West Acres on a Saturday morning. I think we've all probably been there, where you've had to find a parking spot. You can kind of see and compare that to the previous slide of, what 550 feet is compared to 175 feet. And then this is Moorhead Target kind of offering a similar comparison. So in summary, we think there's a great plan for parking, both for short-term and long-term. This is a site plan of Moorhead City Hall. You can see the dark box. That is the footprint of City Hall today. Wrapping around the west and on the north is that glass addition that you saw in the rendering. So to the north, we have an addition. We'll take a look at what is included in that. And then on the west, we have a lobby that expands from north to south all along the west side of the building. In yellow, we're showing the main entries that the public can use to access City Hall. And then you'll see this more as we continue, but the blue circle indicates where that kind of first encounter for Moorhead Public Service would happen on the first floor. So you can kind of picture that in relationship to those yellow circles. And then you can kind of see to the north and then along the east, those on-street parking spots that I had mentioned previously. This is a rendering from the plaza, kind of looking in the west side into that lobby space. And wanted to just show this so you can kind of see the relationship between one of the main entries on the south and Moorhead Public Service customer service desk is located, along with what we're calling the one stop, which I'll get into more detail. You can see the Moorhead Public Library there in the corner as well. So first floor plan, again, those two main entries we're calling out with the yellow dots, the blue Moorhead Public Service customer service desk kind of in the middle there. The north addition that I mentioned, there is a large community room that's planned for that addition. We'll talk more about that, but that's shown in yellow. There's also administrative offices to the north. And then along the west, you can see there is that lobby that stretches all the way from north to south. That's open to the public, accessible. There's lots of glass that looks out into the plaza space and also lets a lot of natural light in. And then other accessible support spaces like toilet rooms, mother's rooms, things of that nature are also included in that lobby space. So when we first started thinking and planning about this project, one of the biggest drivers was safety and security and separation from the public and staff. So previously, when you'd go into Moorhead City Hall, you'd come into the first floor of the mall, you'd have to find the elevator, you'd have to figure out where you're going, whether it's MPS or engineering or planning, get in the elevator, find the floor, go up to that level, come into another lobby, someone is hopefully there to help you. The goal with this project was to simplify that user experience for the customer. So they come in, and whether it's Moorhead Public Service window or what we've been calling the one stop is their first point of interaction with a staff member. So they walk in, they see a friendly face, they know who to ask a question to, and it's creating this, what I have shown in the yellow as this hard line between what the public's able to access versus what is staff only. Certainly, we think there will be times where the public will come on the other side of that hard yellow line, but they would have to be escorted in order to do that. So there's no public that's going to be wandering up on the third floor trying to figure out who they're going to, who they're trying to find. Highlighted on here, you can see where the existing stairs, elevator are at. So again, it's on the right side or the staff side of that line. So creating a secure, I don't want to say barrier because that sounds harsh, but creating a secure separation between the public and staff. We're going to look more at the Moorhead Public Service space, but I just wanted to highlight it in blue so that when we get to those slides, you can kind of frame where that's at in the project. Robin mentioned this a little bit as well, but when we started off design of the entire City Hall project, we had user group meetings with all the departments. And the goal of those was to identify what we call an architectural program. That architectural program is the list of all the spaces, needs, services that each individual department has. You're seeing just kind of a snip of that for Moorhead Public Service. But we had a series of meetings. We toured the previous space at City Hall, all just trying to do information gathering for us to move on into the design phase. I would like to just take a minute to thank Travis, some of his staff for all the time. It takes a lot from staff to be able to design these projects. We need a lot of feedback. We need a lot of guidance. And Travis in particular, Mark, other staff have been really great in lending their time to us as we've made our way through this project. So kind of, I hope you could see it more clearly on your screens, but we're focusing in on just the south hall, or excuse me, the south portion of City Hall. So the current City Hall footprint is really kind of the south extents or the bottom extents that you can see on your screen, and then the north extents. You can see that lobby in yellow on the side. Moorhead Public Service space is kind of in the lighter green. One stop, which I'll talk about, is in yellow. So the idea behind a one stop at this first floor was, again, as customers come in, as the public comes in, having that first point of contact, someone to ask a question to. So if I'm coming to City Hall because I want to take out a permit to build a garage in my backyard or a special events permit, again, rather than trying to find that who I'm supposed to talk to on one of the floors, I can go to the one stop and I can get a majority of my questions answered. So that one stop is adjacent to Moorhead Public Service window, but they're separate, and we'll look more at that in an image coming up. But the one stop is shown in yellow. Tethered to the one stop is the city clerk and the deputy city clerk. And then what you're seeing in the darker green is all of the shared space on first floor that we'll talk about. What we're addressing in the Moorhead Public Service office space are 6 private enclosed offices, 2 short-term growth offices, and then 8 of your customer account specialists, cashier locations. On this slide, the yellow circle is the customer service window for Moorhead Public Service. This is a rendering showing that lobby that I've mentioned that runs north-south. The first window that you see on the left would be the one stop that was in yellow on the previous plan. And then the next 2 bays are customer account specialists for Moorhead Public Service. That center window would be the customer service window that if I'm coming to MPS to pay my bill, there'll be signage and wayfinding to direct someone there, but the idea is you come in the main entry and it's easy for you to find where that window is at. Again, another example of staff lending their time and feedback. We've had a few different meetings talking just about this customer service window and coordinating safety security concerns, coordinating the furniture and ergonomics, how the interaction between staff and the public would happen, how audio is transmitted through these windows. And so we've been talking about all those details as it relates to the entire project, as well as Moorhead Public Service. The other thing I wanted to point out was Moorhead Public Service, the light green, is all in a secure office location. So it's separated from the rest of the floor that you're seeing. The entry doors into Moorhead Public Service Department is highlighted in those blue circles. This is an image if you're standing on the north side of the one stop in yellow and kind of looking south into the Moorhead Public Service space. You could see one stop kind of in the foreground, and then the next two bays are the customer service windows. For those of you that are familiar with the old City Hall, there's this two-story volume where the old City Council chambers is kind of the second floor. It doesn't go all the way to the edges, but you have this large two-story volume. A priority for the design team was to embrace those openings for natural light, as well as creating a really warm working environment for staff. And so you'll see another image, but we're placing these open offices and these windows underneath that large two-story space. It's gonna have a lot of great natural light, views out to the plaza. This plan kind of highlights all the shared spaces on first floor. So I'll start with the blue. The blue are conference rooms that are available. The conference room in the southwest corner is a large conference room that has actually a door out to the lobby that can be used for meetings where the public would be interacting with staff. The other conference room in the southeast corner would be a staff conference room, but of similar size. And then there's a smaller, 6 to 8 person conference room just to the north of MPS's space. In the green is the workroom and the mailroom. So that's where MPS's printer will be at, kind of all the postage meters and support equipment for those daily tasks. That will also function as the mailroom for City Hall. So departments will have their mailboxes in that room. And then the space on the shown in yellow is what we've been calling a collaboration space. But think really kind of a mixture of break room for staff to have lunches, take breaks, but also kind of a productive space where if 2 or 3 staff need to get out of their office, have a quick meeting or a touchdown, it's another working option for them to do so. And so the furniture in there will be both for break functions as well as productivity functions, if that makes sense. This is a rendering showing what that space is going to start to look like. So you can see again that 2-story volume that is framed by the previous city council chambers on second floor. We got really excited about this space for a number of reasons, but one of the big reasons is we learned from your staff that there's a regiment to when the customer supports specialists are taking breaks or taking lunches. You need to have someone at the window, obviously, for when the customers come. And so there's kind of this regimented nature of when people are taking breaks and their lunches. And having this adjacency between the break room to Moorhead Public Service, I think is going to be a really strong connection between MPS for your staff. So I think I hit on kind of all the big points of first floor. Next, I wanted to hit on the community room. So in yellow at the top, the community room is envisioned to be accessible, have great views out to the plaza, a lot of great natural light. This is the space where City Council will have meetings, Moorhead Public Service Commission can have meetings, all the other commissions that meet on behalf of the city of Moorhead can use this space. What we also are excited about is this opportunity that it can also flex into a multi-purpose room for, friends of the city, nonprofits, people to use. It has great connection to, again, the future plaza, accessibility. And so think of it really as kind of this multi-purpose nature that has, a set dais with all the audio-visual upgrades, but then also this ability to flex into kind of a new space. This slide shows, just wanted to give kind of a sense of the other departments that are included in the project. On second floor, which is the second plan in, information technology takes up the second floor. Third floor is human resources, prosecution, and finance. And fourth floor is community development and economic development. Fifth floor is engineering and government affairs. So just gives kind of a high-level overview of where the departments stack up in City Hall. One of the other things that when we met with groups early on, we wanted to build a project that is going to last not just 5-7 years, but 10, 15 years, 20 years into the future. And so we talked a lot about growth with each department and how growth happens so that we can plan in and design in growth day one for the project. To give you kind of a high-level idea, there's going to be about 100 staff, give or take, that are going to be working at City Hall on a day-to-day basis. You know, that includes interns and part-time, but call it 100 staff. We have about 25% growth included in the design planned for, or the ability to grow into spaces included in the plan. That also extends to Moorhead Public Service. We have a couple of short-term growth offices that are immediately planned for on first floor. And then we have options for even longer-term growth. One of those options could be using space on second floor, one of those conference rooms that we looked at. It could also mean, in what we're showing here on the third floor, where we have finance and human resources, in the future there could be collaboration between your finance staff, MPS's finance staff, and City Hall finance staff. And so one option could be we have growth dedicated for, you know, third floor for those staff, but additional growth included that maybe could be Moorhead Public Service. But the point being is we've been strategic about growth and making sure that it's included so that we're setting the building up for success. My last slide, just wanted to share some kind of big milestones. So the first is demolition has already started on the interior of City Hall. That's the first image that you see on the left. So all the walls, all the doors, all the mechanical systems, electrical is all taken out. We intentionally did an early demolition bid package for a couple of reasons. It allows our construction partner, McGough, to get started on construction earlier by demolishing what we know is coming out of City Hall. It also reveals all those hidden things behind walls and ceilings that come up on existing building project renovations so that we can catch those in design and make accommodations for them. So that's been a big work effort over the course of the last couple months. We put out recently another bid package for all the footings, foundations, structural steel for that north and that west addition. And got back bids about a month ago for that bid package. That also included all the windows are going to be replaced as a part of the tower. And so that work is going to now start to happen again with our construction partners, McGough. The image in the middle, if you haven't been by the site in a while, shows that mall demolition continues to happen. All of the west side of City Hall, the mall is demolished. You obviously can see City Hall there on the left-hand side, and then Moorhead Public Library, the structural frame starting to come out of the ground there. Demolition on the east has already started in bits and pieces, and that will continue into the summer as well. And then lastly, a couple months ago, we wrapped up what is our second to last design package, which we call the design development phase. McGough put an estimate to that, and we are tracking on budget with the entire City Hall project, which is always a really big milestone to make sure you're hitting those budget milestones as you make your way through the design of a project. So next steps, Rob touched on this a little bit, but I'll expand. We are wrapping up the finalization of our design in June. McGough is going to put that out for bid for bid package 3. That's all the interior fit up, the mechanical, the electrical design of the project. And that will be, bids will come back in early August that we'll share with City Council. And then construction is obviously happening now with demolition. and will continue all the way through fall of 2026 when the project will be open for use. So I think that's everything. We could probably spend 4 hours talking about this project, but hopefully that gives you kind of a sense. We're obviously happy to jump back to any slides. If you have specific questions, we're happy to jump back to anything.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
go back to the first slide of the first floor that shows the one stop and the Moorhead Public Service and that, please. I think that one is good, right there. There. So just like my own edification on this thing. So I come into the lobby, I stop at the one stop, and I find out I need to go to prosecution, which I think is second floor. How do I get there? Where's the public elevator that gets me to second floor?
So
Is there one?
the elevators that are there today are going to remain the elevators. So those are on the private side. The idea is if you're coming for prosecution engineering, you'd go to the one stop, request whatever information or why you're there. The idea is that hopefully for majority of the things that the public is going to come into City Hall for, hopefully the individuals working at the one stop can at least get them on the right track or answer their questions. Call it maybe 70% of the time they'll be able to do that. There is a time where you're going to need to call someone from prosecution. You're going to need to call the city planner down. And so the idea is then city planner comes down, they come to the one stop. If they can handle the question at the desk, then they handle it at the desk. If they think it's a longer discussion or a meeting needs to happen, then that's where that meeting room right next to the one stop will be beneficial. They can hop in the meeting room, pull anything up on the screen, talk through anything that they need to. In a rare instance, they might have to go up to an office on an upper floor. And if that's the case, then that individual would escort them into the elevator up to the office for a meeting. Does that answer the question?
It does. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think if you had a scheduled meeting, it would probably then be scheduled on the first floor rather than going up. Or, I mean, from a prosecution standpoint, just because that's kind of my wheelhouse, if it's a defense attorney and they want to meet with the prosecutor, I'm sure that they would just, be able to go up and visit with them.
Yep.
Right.
Or these rooms will have room schedulers. If they know a meeting's happening, they can reserve that room from 9 to 9:45, and then they could get let in and
Right.
go about the meeting. Yeah. So previous Moorhead City Hall, there were 3 conference rooms kind of throughout the facility. There were some offices that were also like office, but then it got used as a conference space. Between the large conference rooms, smaller conference rooms, huddle rooms, there's going to be 19 opportunities for people to meet. So each floor has a dedicated 12-person conference room, but then also multiple support huddle spaces for like, think 3 or 4 people. If you want to have 2 or 3 of your staff go into a small huddle room. There's going to be a lot more conferencing availability to hopefully alleviate the lack of conferencing in previous City Hall.
All right, hi, I'm Mike Reitz, Assistant City Manager. I'm working on this project too. Just wanted to add, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, that sounds like a lot of meeting space, but it's also our growth space. It's intended to be a lot of that be growth space. We also, the other thing that happened was we intentionally, if you remember the old City Hall, the offices all seemed overly large and it seemed like kind of a waste of space. So we have intentionally kind of minimized the office space, not put a lot of meeting space within individual offices. And that's the other reason why there's a lot of smaller and more flexible meeting spaces, with the idea that most meetings wouldn't be occurring in people's offices.
Right. Just one more comment. I like the security, the level of security. I mean, frankly, there's 100 people trying to do their work and they won't be interrupted because people aren't just going to willy-nilly be going up an elevator and trying to find people. So I like that. I think from a safety standpoint, I think that's really nice. And I think it's just the way the world is now. So kudos on that.
And there's two opportunities with that. It creates the security, but it also just makes it so much easier for the public. Like I come in and I'm either going to this counter for one stop, or I know I'm coming to Moorhead Public Service to pay my bill there. I don't have to worry about what floor am I on? How do I, once I get to the floor, who do I go talk to then? So it just creates really clear customer service
Yep.
for the public.
I have a question, and thank you. This is very helpful because I've heard a lot about this project. So, on the MPS side, how does this space compare to our old space? And then you mentioned the growth portion. Where's the growth? Like if I say 5 years down the road we want more offices, it looks like a lot of conference space right now. Are those convertible, or tell me more about the growth part of it?
Yep. So the lighter green Moorhead Public Service space is smaller than the previous footprint on called second floor of the old city hall. Part of that was what Mike had just mentioned, kind of the oversizing of offices. We're trying to right size offices for all the departments. So part of it is just shrinking down overall office sizes. There's also some shared space, like the workroom is going to be shared. The second part of your question was growth. So if you can kind of see in the middle of the plan, there's 6 offices. There's an additional 2 offices just to the south of that. So 8 offices total. That accounts for 6 staff day one and then 2 growth. So there's 2 immediate growth offices day one. Those are going to get built. They're going to have the electrical outlets in them. They're going to have the lighting in them. They're going to have the doors, the locks, all of that. So they're move-in ready. Additional growth outside of those 2 spaces, I think there's lots of options. And I mentioned perhaps one of them is it takes up one of those conference rooms that were shown on first floor. There's also other space on like the 3rd floor as an example. If in the future there's a value in having finance staff work not in the finance space but adjacent to it as one example. So I think there's options for even longer term growth.
Just a question about ooh, feedback. Hot mic. Okay. So just speaking with the staff, so I get the square footage where you get into an old building, much bigger offices, and you don't need it as long as you've got good support spaces in there. But is 2 enough? And and that's just 2 offices. But what about support staff? If I see 8 seats there, roughly. How do you deal with that, especially if it's a customer-facing position that we want to make sure that we're taking care of?
Yeah, I think there could be an opportunity in that conference room just to the south as one example. Again, just knowing that we have multiple conference room opportunities. And then there's always the potential for some of the other spaces on first floor, like collaboration space, trying to find a way to carve out more space for MPS there.
And I'm sure every department is asking the same question. If you lose 100 square feet, you're looking for how are you going to expand for the future. The other comment I would make, I get the shared mailroom workspace type of thing. I'm not on board with having to leave a secure area to walk around a break room and swing around to a spot to pick up what I just printed. That's,
It's probably hard to see in the plan,
Yep.
but there would be a door from MPS into that workroom. That would be a card access door. So
Okay.
you'd present your credentials, you could get into that space. You'd have to present your credentials to get back into MPS. I think that's how we're handling the security, so that you're not having to walk around, to your point. Yep, good question.
Couple other things too, kind of growth related and operational. I know as we've continued to talk to some of the customer service staff, I mean, there's going to be the reality of some like short, immediate term need things like desktop printers and some of those pieces of equipment that'll still be accessible and just be part of actually fitting up those functional spaces for the public service side of it, for the customer service side of it. One thing, like very intentionally, with the one stop and the MPS service counter being right adjacent to the concourse, is you have like it's hard to imagine. You can kind of see it when you look at the renderings. You can really see it when you go out to the site. You know, you have these 20 by 20 bays, we call them, where it's column, concrete girder, concrete column. You've got one stop in the furthest north one there, and then you have MPS. Well, there's actually a growth bay that is just right now is shown as, you know, just a secure glass separator that could be easily opened up in the future if additional customer service, like if the customer service strategy needed to change significantly in the future for the city or MPS as strategies advance. The intent of that is for that to be as flexible across that entire space as it needs to be, as simple as like literally removing those glass, putting in different glass and being able to support that. So recognizing, and these are a lot of the conversations that were happening during that like pre-design programming phase with Travis and Mark and team, talking about what positions actually would need to grow as the city grows. Is it people that are seated in this space that would actually have to grow to serve that? Or is it people that, you know, may expand in other locations? And that was a lot of conversation with MPS specifically because you all do have some other resources around the community. You know, there's some other departments, Lisa brought one up too, that are, you know, I'll say like a little bit, you know, in the building and I have a little different connection to the building. There's some built-in flexibility and some levers there. There's some strategy around as part of the North Addition, which the City Council did just approve at the last council meeting. We have administration on the main floor too, as we talked about, you know, kind of growth and strategy for people that are coming to the building and needing more of that face-to-face interaction with some of the leadership. That's why people like Mike and Dan are actually located right on the main floor, the mayor's office. So some of those like day-to-day interactions can still happen really, you know, seamlessly on the ground level, keeping that kind of as you go up strategy more for the professional side of it.
Right. Any additional questions? I have a couple. Probably the literal $1 million question is we haven't talked about budget yet, and I know Travis had mentioned this is a potential financial decision for this board. Can you talk a little bit about just the overall budget and the funding and financing and what that looks like for the project?
Yeah, I could talk about the overall budget. Mike might be a better one to talk about the financing piece. Overall budget for the project is $27 million. That's full project budget. That includes not just the construction of City Hall, but that's all of your what we call soft costs. So your furniture, your professional compensation for your engineers and your architects, all of the other equipment and fixtures that are needed in the building. So that what we call a total project cost of $27 million. So I can probably answer that question. Mike might be a better one to answer kind of the financing piece.
Yeah, in terms of, he was rounding up a little bit. I mean, the project cost is currently sitting at about 26.4 million. You know, I guess when you get into the bonding costs and such, that goes into it as well. You know, I think we were planning a separate meeting to talk a little bit more in depth about the numbers. But I guess, you know, in general, I think we're looking at, you know, in terms of trying to figure out the right mix of what goes on the tax rolls and what is paid by ratepayers. You know, we've just generally been looking at, you know, about 60% on the tax rolls, another 20% coming from the enterprise funds that are under the city council, and 20% coming from the MPS board.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should probably have another meeting to talk about that. I mean, as far as I know, Travis, we don't have anything budgeted yet, and we're moving into our next yearly budgeting phase. You know, 20% of 27 million is a fairly large number for us to look at. And so I definitely think we're probably going to need some more discussion about that.
Well, two responses to that. One, you know, we're planning on bonding for this, so it's something that, you know, you would be able to plan out over space of about 20 years. Also, you know, it's not an immediate budget need either. We are planning on doing the bonding in such a way where the first payment, I believe, is 2027, and that would be more of a interest-only type of payment, so about half of the total bond issue. And then the next year, we would add the premium. So really, you've got 2 years to build the full amount into your budget, and that's 27 and 28. So there is some time for some financial planning.
Sure. And Mike, how was that 20% figured out as far as what the city feels should be allocated to the ratepayers of Moorhead Public Service?
Well, I don't know that there was any particular you know, metrics there. It seemed like a reasonable breakdown between what the taxpayers, you know, the ratepayers would pay and the taxpayers. I mean, they are the same people, but it's just, you know, diversifying the you know, the revenue sources for the project. You know, different communities make different choices. We're aware of one community that did a similar project, a city hall remodel project, and it was entirely paid by the public utility. So it's just a decision on what each community chooses to do.
Sure. Okay. Well, obviously there needs to be a lot more discussion here, I think, because this is the first time we're hearing about that, of course. So I would anticipate that we probably take a look at that in anticipation of our long-term budgeting cycle. And we do look fairly far out, Mike, during our budgeting cycles. And I know, Mark, you don't have anything included in here for that. I guess, you know, a final question would be, is MPS paying for City Hall like the existing place in the past? Or, you know, is this is obviously a new line item cost for the ratepayers and for MPS?
I don't know what was done 50 years ago when it was built. And you know, that's all been paid off for quite some time. You know, the only building related payment that I'm aware of, and I'm not exactly sure what the number is sort of a general maintenance type of cost, I guess, equivalent to what, you know, on a lease space you'd call the CAM portion.
Sure.
I don't know what it is. That's, you know, I guess, you know, this is just conversations between Dan and I. You know, we're not, in terms of the maintenance side of things, I don't know that we see that changing a whole lot. It's the capital side that we're looking for some contribution.
Sure. One additional question. Can you talk a little bit about the construction manager at risk and maybe the decision by the city to go that route versus other contracting options?
Well, I think the main one there was it allows us to kind of lock in our pricing. It puts them at risk for, you know, cost overruns and things like that. So from that perspective, you know, we saw a lot of value in that. We used it. We started using it with the library project, and kind of saw how that was all coming together. Felt like that there were some real positives there. I know from working on the City Hall project, and the demolition of the mall, we also used that same method there. I've done a lot of capital projects over the course of my career, and it is a more efficient way to do it. It is a way, you know, you put the professionals in charge of doing the project. And the amount of things where, you know, I start to stress about it, or our facilities guy starts to stress about it, and they say, no, that's our job. We'll do that. It's a completely different way of doing things, and it feels like a much more efficient way.
Sure.
Just in regards to that question, adding on to what Mike said, when you have a construction manager at risk versus, you know, putting a project out for bid and getting multiple bids, which they still do for subcontractors, but when you have a CMAR, they drive the schedule and the budget for you. So maybe the best example of that is I mentioned we're doing an early demolition package, an early structural package. It's really hard, if not impossible, to do that unless you have a construction manager at risk. The value in doing that is we can design those packages, put them out for bid. They can help manage that for us. And the schedule actually gets condensed because of it. They can start sooner, the project can end sooner than if we have to design everything right away, put it out for bid all at once, if that makes sense. Certainly there's value in the budgeting as well. If you design a project, put it out for bid, you don't have that partner on the costing side. So maybe that's a couple other examples of the value that CMAR brings.
Sure. Thank you. Well, thank you for coming tonight. It is much appreciated. It is kind of this commission's first look at this project. With the bids coming out shortly, you know, and the amount that the city is requesting, I would say there's got to be a lot of discussion there, Travis. You know, we need to see what that looks like as far as rate increases in the future and how that compares with our existing proposed budget and our capital improvement plans moving into the future. And I would also say, Mike, I mean, there's a big discussion, I think, between MPS, the city, and the EDA and economic development opportunities and what that looks like as well, and how we're keeping our rates competitive in order to approach those sorts of situations. So I guess those are my biggest concerns from a MPS board member perspective. And, you know, I think we should probably have some of those discussions sooner than later.
Correct. I would agree. You know, the City Hall project is going on. You know, we've also got to look at our other spaces as well. You know, with our dispatch operations center, again, what do we got? 11 employees at City Hall of our roughly 60 to 65 employees in total. So our dispatch operations center is really, you know, our hub where most of our employees are at. You know, we are running out of space in that area right now as well. I think we've got roughly 2 offices, and those are actually dedicated for future growth as well. We're looking at whether or not we need another electrical engineer on staff, and then looking at succession planning as well. And what does that look like? Those 2 offices could be filled up within probably the next 5 years or so. So, you know, what does that mean for the dispatch operations center. Do we need to do something there? We've got the old half of the water plant where we could do, put a bunch of money into it and turn that into additional office space, or is that the right thing that we should do? Mr. Pritchard's probably questioning what I'm talking about right now because it's his water plant or his old water plant, along with the finances and how everything looks together as well too. So important discussions. Mike, one question, is that, I'm assuming, a 20-year bond? Okay. So how do you want to approach it?
Well, obviously, I don't want to speak for the commission. I'm only one person, but, I'd certainly recommend that the budget working group get together to take a look at some of these and what the impacts are going to be to the ratepayers, alongside what our proposed capital improvement projects are over the course of the, next planning period that we're looking at, that Mark takes a look at. From a financial perspective, to kind of really give us a picture of what those potential rate increases are going to be. And then I think have discussions with the city and, make sure everyone's on the same page that, this is what user rates are going to look like. And this is how, the positive and the negative. So, I think that should be done fairly quickly so that we get a picture of what our outlook looks like. I know we have a number of large projects potentially that MPS is looking at in the future. The Lake Agassiz Water Authority, of course, and potential drought resiliency projects from that level, as well as, fairly large water plant, potential projects that we need to look out for. So I guess that'd be my recommendation, to have the budget working group kind of get together to start to look at some of these numbers. And I don't know timing for that. I know Mark has to do a lot of number crunching to take a look at that. So, I mean, maybe just something to take a look at here over the course of the next month or two.
Thanks for me.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay, well, I thank you guys for coming. I mean, it's very informative tonight. Certainly appreciate the information. So thank you very much. All right. Okay, with that, we'll move to item number 12. I don't think we had a planned closed session today. So upcoming meetings, June 17th, believe we're planning on having a regular meeting.
Yep, that'll be a regular meeting. We'll actually provide our annual management report at that meeting, along with, Mr. Ness was interested in this, but our annual reliability report will be presented at that meeting as well, too.
Okay, great. And then July 1st, if needed. I know that's right around the holidays, so.
Yeah,
we'll
right now,
look at that.
we're not planning on having that July 1st unless something comes up.
Okay, sounds great. And then there are some upcoming conferences here. I know, Travis, you were planning on attending APPA?
Yep, I'll be, next week, I'll be down in New Orleans, Louisiana, for the APPA National Conference. And
Okay.
then Mark Pritchard, and I think you're also attending the ACE conference for AWWA.
That's right, and I think Commissioner Durand was also?
She is pulling out because
She is,
of
okay.
the what she's got going on right now.
Sure, understood. Okay, with that, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, got a motion from Lysa, second from Borgen. Roll call vote. Borgen?
Yes.
Baker?
Aye.
Lysa?
Aye.
Ness?
Yes. Aye.
And Paulson? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.